Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending from what part of the planet you are watching us today. A century and a half ago, Jules Verne's classic Around the World in 80 Days was published. Today, as we celebrate 10 years of Embassy Direct's first edition, we tribute Verne's work as well through this special series of webinars around the globe in 9 months. This is our response to almost 2 years of a world shutdown. We start our journey in South Africa, and for it, Mr. David Frost, CEO of Satsa, is joining us to moderate this first episode. Mr. David Frost, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rodrigo, and thank you for this really amazing opportunity to talk to what I think is a particularly interesting travel segment, and that is all the foreign missions and embassies and high commissions and whatever else you call yourselves that are located in South Africa. Not only do you provide I think a very important diplomatic link and service, but you act as a conduit to travelers, to friends and family, to investors, to a whole lot of people who come into our country. So what we are hoping to do today is to really, with the panel that we've put in place, share some really interesting new products, some interesting new perspectives, and hopefully entice you to not only bring more people here, but also to go and have some really new and interesting experiences. So Satsa is the Inbound Tourism Association in South Africa. We have 1,400 member companies, and we are privileged today to be joined by Andrew Camp, who's the Sales and Marketing Director of Sun International. They have a really big product footprint and some iconic properties, and I'm sure Andrew's going to be telling you about some interesting and new developments. We have Craig Drysdale, who is a former president of Satsa. He's with ITT, Inspirational Travel and Tours, based down in Durban. He is an inbound tour operator. But what I've always loved about Craig is he's always interested in what's new, what's interesting, and he sells the entire country. And they're always, as I say, looking for new angles. We have Jeanneret Momberg, who is the CEO of Visit Stellenbosch. And there's been a really interesting just renaissance in both wine and tourism within Stellenbosch. Jeanneret comes out of the wine industry, but they've partnered with the tourism industry, and obviously wine and food is a major draw card in that area, and we'll be hearing from Jeanneret about some interesting developments down there. And then we have Ron McKenzie, who is he's like a tourism outlaw. But he's an amazingly passionate and enigmatic tourism person in this country. He's a connector, I think, is probably the best way to describe him. And Ron, amongst other things, we'll be hearing from him, has a passion for rural South Africa, for small towns, for interesting little vignettes, interesting people and experiences, and we'll be coming to him. But why don't we get into the helicopter, Craig, and let's kick off with you. Just, a short intro about ITT, the role of inbound tour operators, and then, just talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff that you think is new and interesting. I mean, bearing in mind that, the audience we're speaking to.
All right, David, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So just a little background. So Inspiration Travel and Tours is an inbound tour operator. We've been operating, in fact, this year, 40 years, and primarily in Southern Africa. So that would be South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique. But the focus today is really just on South Africa. And typically as a DMC, we would look after FITs and groups and incentive groups. And our niche as a particular business is very much in the self-drive space. So, and I'm sure Ron will talk about it later, is really looking at those small nodes within South Africa and selling those self-drive packages. But just, David, just to go through, I mean, as a DMC, our job is always to create, exciting itineraries, and it's always not the same itineraries as new products and new services coming through. And particularly during COVID, well, a lot of people were going through very tough times. I think a lot of products and a lot of destinations within South Africa was sort of recreating themselves, use the opportunity to refurbish. And my colleague Andrew will talk particularly on the Sun International side. But a lot of new products, despite COVID, actually came through, within the Kruger Park Garden in Cape Town, from that point of view. And as a DMC, our job is to be in touch with those destinations and those products, and to really put those products together, and then to fan it out to our wholesalers. So most DMCs in South Africa are very much, work in the B2B space, where we work with international wholesalers all around the world, and putting those products together and really just driving and selling it, as South Africa as a destination coming through. But yeah, so it's been a very exciting. Though COVID was obviously tough the last few years, we've come out of it, and there's been a lot of, like I say, a lot of new stuff, a lot of exciting stuff coming through, and we're just blessed at the moment that the bookings are coming through, and South Africa is really a sought after destination. And I've got to say this: if you look at our rate of exchange, it's a very sought after destination. I always, when we do trips to the UK or Europe, and we always do slideshows, we always say, for one beer you can buy in the UK, you can buy 4 beers in South Africa. Well, today you now can buy 5 beers. So that is how the rate of exchange is moving. And like I say, my colleague Andrew will talk more sort of around the products and what they're doing going forward. But yeah, I hope, David, that sort of answered what you asked.
Well, I'm going to come back and probe you on some of the the specifics around some of the sort of new new products. Have we lost Jeanneret? I don't seem to hear, but we're going to forge on. Andrew, just let's come to Sunnet, and you guys have some iconic properties. You own Sun City, amongst other stuff. Just from your side, and obviously it'd be interesting to know if any new developments within your group. But you also, you get out and about. You are on the road quite a lot internationally in terms of selling this sort of stuff. But any insights for our audience today from your perspective?
Thanks, David. Yes, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the listeners. So just for those who may not know Sun International, we're one of Africa's largest tourism and leisure groups. We operate luxury hotels and resorts in key locations around Southern Africa, and one in Nigeria. But today we're talking about South Africa. Yeah, it's like Craig, we've been around for 40 years. So a lot of experience in operating luxury hotels and resorts. The last few years have gave us the opportunity. I'm trying to keep this positive because we all had a tough time during the pandemic, but the last few years gave us the opportunity to take a step back and look at what our hotels and resorts required. During the heavy lockdown periods was a time for us to, even though we were cash constrained with no business coming in, it allowed us the opportunity to start with the refurbishment projects that we weren't able to do during the high occupancy periods. So for us, there was a large project that was conducted at the Sun City Resort, mainly with the Palace, the Palace of the Lost City, which is just over a 330 room luxury 5-star product. We did a full refurbishment of the hotel. Every single room was fully gutted and refurbished to lighten and enhance the modern features, but still keeping in with the African elegance that one would expect from a product like the Palace. We've also added a royal spa and salon at the Palace, which previously didn't have, as well as a fitness center for the product. So for those guests who like to maintain a fitness regime or want to pamper themselves, they now have the opportunity to do that at the Palace, rather than having to go down to the Gary Player Country Club to do so. A lot of other projects at the other 3 hotels. Of course, Sun City Resort has a 3, 4, and 2 5-star options on the resort. Major refurbishment has happened at all of the hotels. Of course, the 2 championship golf courses have seen a lot of work done to them as well. We had the Nedbank Golf Challenge that happened late last year after a 2-year break. So, you know, that was fantastic to see the crowds coming back for that major international event. You know, from my travels, so some of the trends that we're seeing at the moment coming into the product, we're certainly seeing, may not be new trends, but certainly re-emerging trends, something, you know, along the lines of a transformative travel where guests have a more immersive experience. So they may want to get involved in a game drive experience into the neighboring Pilanesberg Game Reserve and be involved in rhino notching. And if you don't know what rhino notching is as a listener, it's getting up close and personal with the veterinarians who put microchips into the rhino horns, and so they're able to track the rhinos. You know, the transformative travel experience is getting more involved in what you're doing. So you may be going into a local community to assist with repainting a school or helping teach an English class. It's doing something other than the normal leisure activity. And we do a lot of that in the local communities, up in Sun City Resort, just outside of the resort, in the local communities, and also down in Cape Town at our flagship product, which is the Table Bay. So we're seeing that emergence of transformative travel. And another one, which is revenge travel, which people, a term that I heard in the US on my recent travels was revenge travel, where people are, you know, we've been locked down, our freedom was taken away, we were in heavy lockdowns, we weren't able to travel, and so people are now traveling more. They're spending 30% more on luxury items, on luxury travel, and that's a key one for us. We're seeing a lot more people that are wanting to take the control back, travel for longer periods, spend longer in one destination, and spend more on experiential travel. So for me, those are 2 key trends that we're seeing and that I'm seeing from our travels. And then just very quickly, single lady travel, solo travel is a big one. Multi-generational travel. I mean, over the last 3 years, I'm sure we've all either had people close to us pass away, or we know somebody who has. And I think that has really made people realize that, you know, traveling with your loved ones is incredibly important, to touch those, to get out and do those bucket list items. So for me, those are the key things that I've taken away from the last few years.
Thanks, Andy. Really, really useful to have those sort of insights. Jeanneret, let me come to you. I mean, Stellenbosch and the surrounds there has always been a bit of a major draw card. You know, to me, I mean, and talking to the audience, I mean, I think we still have a major opportunity to position not only Stellenbosch, but that whole Franschhoek-Paarl nexus, that whole area as really the Tuscany of South Africa. I mean, a lot of people go and spend, you know, Rome's obviously a big draw card for tourists, but a lot of people go and spend, you know, a week or 10 days just, you know, hanging out in Tuscany and doing the most delicious food and wine and a bit of walking and stuff like that. But you know, you guys, I think, really, I've been so impressed since Visit Stellenbosch was established. It's about 3 years ago. But just give us a little bit about your journey and some of the new and interesting stuff that's going on down in Stellies, and then I'm going to come across to Ron, and we'll go on a little journey into the small towns of South Africa. But over to you, Jeanneret.
Thank you, David. Yes, so Visit Stellenbosch is then the official destination marketing organization for our town. We have used the time during COVID very wisely, because shortly before that, in July 2019, was when Visit Stellenbosch really came into being. And the years prior to that, the whole tourism platform in Stellenbosch was completely fragmented. So it was always wine on the one side and then the rest on the other side. And a destination like Stellenbosch, you cannot promote, you cannot fulfill its full potential when it was so fragmented. So shortly before, so in July 2019, we came all together. And during COVID, we earlier talked about the positive things that did come out of COVID. And one of that for Stellenbosch was the fact that the unification of our industry was fast-tracked, because everyone realized that this storm you cannot weather on your own. You had to collaborate, you had to stand together. So now I'm very proud to say that we are a unified destination with all the sectors, wine always being the leading sector in Stellenbosch, together with food, and I'll speak a little bit more in depth about that later. We've got experiences, and then we have a very strong socioeconomic development drive. So we want to make sure that as we grow our tourism economy, that all our communities benefit from our prosperous future that we have in Stellenbosch. So community tourism is a great draw card, and that is also one of the trends that we are definitely seeing. So people are looking for authenticity. They want to experience that in-depth immersive experiences, stories to be shared. So we have had time during COVID to package all of that, which we've done beautifully through a collaboration that we're having with an organization called, it's a social enterprise called Township and Village, and they offer that service to our visitors to Stellenbosch, but also to the trade, where you know that when you want to introduce your guests to community tourism in Stellenbosch, there is a organization that will look after the logistics, that will make sure that the bookings are and that the standard of service delivery is to satisfaction. But then, as you've rightly mentioned, David, yes, Stellenbosch and surrounds the Cape Winelands can easily become the Tuscany of South Africa, and we are taking the lead. Stellenbosch is taking the lead. When you look at the new things that had happened now after, well, some of it started during COVID and now after COVID, is the new wine bars that we have in Stellenbosch. We call ourselves the wine bar capital in Africa. It's up for debate, but we've got 11 wine bars in Stellenbosch, and all of a sudden, pre-COVID, we had 4, I think maybe 5. Now we've got 11, and that gives the opportunity to guests, when they visit our town, if they don't have time to go into the winelands, they can experience wine in the center of town. We've got wine bar hopping, we've got a wine bar route, so it's all making it very accessible to the tourists to enjoy wine within Stellenbosch. But we absolutely agree with what you've said, Andrew, that people are staying longer, so they maybe have been introduced to Stellenbosch during a tour where Stellenbosch was just one destination, and now they come back and they stay, they use it as a hub, they visit Cape Town from here, they visit the rest of the winelands, and they do day trips, they go to Hermanus, they do whale watching, but they come back and they enjoy everything Stellenbosch has to offer. And then the other, so it was the wine bars that really expanded a lot, and then new restaurants in Stellenbosch. There's a handful that all of a sudden appeared, all high level, fantastic food experiences, and which is just bringing our food offering in Stellenbosch. You can do anything from fine dining to a picnic, a braai, a traditional meal, outdoor feast, lots of different opportunities in town, on the winelands. So really we are setting the scene for people, and of course with good food and good food and wine goes hand in hand. So yes, we're really positioning our very strongly in terms of our gastronomy offering. The other challenge that when Visit Stellenbosch came into being that we realized soon was, yes, everyone would say to me, wow, what a fantastic, but that is part of the problem. It's quite a difficult destination to navigate through, because we've got such a big offering in everything that you can do in Stellenbosch. So what we've done is we've categorized it to make it easier for trade, for visitors, and for our members to navigate through what we have on offer. So we have wine, we've got food, outdoors, culture, and art. So those are our 5 categories. So it's easy to decide what is it that you're interested in, and then to help you navigate. And we've developed quite, and also used the time during COVID for that, developed wonderful tools to help our different stakeholders to navigate through our destination.
Thanks. I mean, that's a really interesting synopsis. And let me just add, I mean, I'm not scared to get down into wine bars and everything, and I've experienced some of those. They're just absolutely amazing. I mean, I mean, it has in a sense, I suppose, and it would let you know, it just, you feel like you could be in any city in Europe, just walking around. Everybody's safe, everybody's out. And the other thing that you guys do really well is you block off streets in the middle of town and bring in a whole lot of food and wine, and those sort of soiree evenings that you do from time to time, particularly in the summer months, are absolutely stunning. But then just a point just from our side, I mean, to the audience as well. I mean, and this is in no way trying to detract from Cape Town, but everybody, I mean, Cape Town is our big anchor, and everybody knows Cape Town, and most people would have been to Cape Town. But if you're coming back, if you're a repeater and you're coming back in, another way to access that part of the world, because the traditional thing is that everybody first time wants to stay in Cape Town, they want to stay perhaps in the waterfront, they've heard about this, and then they do day tours and you go out. And the one thing about Cape Town that does sometimes is a bit arduous is traffic, because there are some roads in and rush hour traffic, you tend to get caught in it. Another way to access that part of the world is to stay in Stellenbosch and do a day trip to Cape Town. So you can do all the trips that you do in your normal Cape stay, the cable car, Cape Point, all of the other interesting things that you can do. But you simply just stay in the winelands and pop into Cape Town to do your trip, and generally you're going against the traffic. But just a little vignette from my side. Okay, Ron, now we find you down in the glorious Eastern Cape in Kenton. Privileged to come and have a cup of coffee. I met Ron in his office, which is a beautiful coffee shack on the beach, and we had a lovely meeting earlier this week. But Ron, just tell us a bit about what you do and just your insights, because I think they are genuinely interesting.
Thanks so much, David. Yeah, it was good to meet you for that coffee, and next time, hopefully, a beer and some golf involved. Thanks for having me on here, and to everyone listening. South Africa, just what I'd like to start off by saying, is a country so full of beauty, so full of good. We often get detracted from this, but there's just so much good. It's very hard to ignore. You know, a thought that I shared with David is Ubuntu and the Rainbow Nation are alive and well in tourism. We're such a part of the good news. I mean, I'm just listening to each of the other speakers making notes about stuff. It's just exciting to hear. So I wanted to say that, and then lead into, you know, sort of the big 5. When you come out to South Africa, the Kruger and Cape Town do us such a big favor, because it's on a lot of international people's travel bucket list, and they want to come out and experience it, perhaps now more than ever. And like the big five, when you're going on drive and you've spotted them and you've got a good field guide or game ranger, and he starts to point out the smaller stuff and some of the beautiful things, South Africa is teeming with beauty. And there are so many places to experience. So I think we're also experiencing that authentic need to travel. So when I started my journey in travel, it was with VVIP, and we still have a component of that, royal families, heads of state, and that has a particular requirement. And something new in that division, which I'd like to point out if anybody doesn't know Pierre Delvaux and his dream of Thunder, it's going to be coming out soon. I think one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting, VIP kind of offering coming onto the market. Wonderful product. Then in terms of kind of our middle market, guys who can afford mortal budgets, if you will, Ian Buchanan's glamping, those pods that were up at Mount Camdebou and seem to be springing out with others. Those have been a lot of fun and opened up adventure travel. And then my particular passion being small towns, heartland travel. I think of a town like Hofmeyr. If anybody ever goes through, go and look at the Victoria Boutique Hotel. Somebody's just put some passion into the town. I think the GM said to me, ask for one bed night a month to start off with. That was the goal. You know, a lot of investors into properties actually make their money elsewhere. If they manage to make their money in travel, hats off to them as well, because it hasn't been an easy road for them. But a lot of investors are investing in a brighter future for South Africa. So, you know, an example that we've had on the blend on that very short time leads has been something new, just unbelievable. I'm coming to South Africa next week. Wow. Okay. I'm coming tomorrow. And then starting to see the bookings and planning coming into place, which is great. So perhaps the reemergence of those traditional trends that were mentioned earlier. And then on the long stays, I mean, we've got a guy who booked a 4-week road trip, blending kind of small towns and then luxury in between. He's booking a 6-week Caprivi strip. He wants Chobe, Etosha, right through Namibia. And he said to me, he said, Ron, just in case you're wondering if, you know, I am a CEO, about my wealth, or if I won a lottery, how I can keep doing this. Both him and his wife's parents were diagnosed with cancer this year. And he said he doesn't want to wait till he's old to live his dream. And he wants to do it now. And he wants to experience real life in South Africa. So real life, we've got Cape Town, we've got beautiful hotels, we've got Kruger, and then a mix of the others. So we really are a destination with something for everyone. So I think those are some of the exciting products. Just something else perhaps to mention is the expat side, where I'm seeing more and more Swedes in particular, for example. Just seems Sweden is investing in the Cape. And then they'll come and they'll get a holiday home and explore the country and visit the palace and, you know, visit Stellenbosch and perhaps book a road trip with ITT. Or so there's something in it for everyone. We've got a big pie. I think we've got so much growth that we can still enjoy. And as an industry working together, it's not like we're giving away a part of our pie. It's sort of like having great coffee shops on the street. If there's one, someone may come. If there's 5, people are definitely coming. So, I mean, hopefully that answers a few of the questions there, David.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, so just, I mean, before I get back to Craig and them, I mean, let me just, you know, I sort of tend to get around myself quite a lot. You know, one of the things we did as Satsa was we led the charge on getting us off the UK red list, which bedeviled us opening up on the inbound side in 2001. And then we were very perniciously, as I think many of the embassy audience will realize, got put back on everybody's red list when our world-class scientists shared the Omicron variant. So at the end of that, I was quite exhausted. And the Satsa, we were privileged to be partnered. We did a sponsorship partnership with Toyota in the middle of COVID. They took a long view that tourism is a growth sector in this country. It's the second biggest economy in South Africa after mining. And so I got a lovely car from Toyota, and I did in 3 months 25,000 Ks just getting out and getting around. And most of the audience we're talking to, most of the diplomatic corps is based in Pretoria. But I just want to, you know, for those of you who on the thing who haven't got up there, 3.5 hours away on probably one of the best national roads, the N1 going north, is get yourselves up to Machubiskloof. It's a beautiful part of the world. Machubiskloof, Zanin, Majudgieskloof. My family roots go back there to 1900, and it is one of the most exquisite places. It's small guest houses. There's a plethora of them. There's hiking. There are waterfalls. It's where the Drakensberg, the escarpment, and the Drakensberg, the spine of the Drakensberg that goes down through the country start. So the views and the mountains are spectacular, and that's a 3.5-hour drive north from Pretoria. So for weekend getaways or a long weekend, it's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world to go and visit. And then the other thing that sort of sprung up, and there's some really interesting product popping up, is in the Waterberg, which is also, I mean, it's literally 2 hours north of Pretoria. Lovely new lodge called Kwabi, which is managed by Newmark Hotels. Privileged to go there in January. I mean, that is really good. It's a big 5 property. It's about 9,000 hectares. And there are many more of these, and also, you know, moving and the other joy about that part of the world is it's malaria free. But Craig, let's come back to you. So you've been hearing a bit from the rest of our panelists. You also get around. Just share with us some of some of your favorite parts of the world. And I know you're based down in KZN, and that's also a province that I think has a lot of hidden gems in. It's off the beaten track in the sense that it's not Kruger and Cape Town, but once again, it's accessible by road from Pretoria. And give us some of your favorite little hideaways.
Oh, thanks, David. Yeah, just listening to everybody, it's interesting, Ron, you know, you concentrate on little towns and that. So through Satsa a few months ago, we started that My Kasi, My Dorpie, which is, you know, typically we do, you know, when you sell South Africa, it's very much what you call the milk run, which is, you know, Johannesburg, Kruger Park, Swaziland, Shishlui, Garden Route in Cape Town. But how many times we actually miss little towns and small little nodes going around. And I was very fortunate a few weeks ago to do, for say, the West Coast. You know, it's something we haven't pushed, like Paternoster, Darling, and those little areas. And I think, David, you know, yeah, I think, you know, South Africa has got so much product, but even more product that we sometimes, even as tour operators, don't even know. And I'm glad to hear that you went and did your 25,000 kilometers. So for us, particularly going forward, it's not just, you know, yes, we always have the main route, we call our main, you know, your main tourist runs, but it's actually looking at those little towns and pushing. So, you know, if you guys ever want to look at, we run this campaign, this kind of hashtag My Kasi, My Dorpie, which really means, in a sense, my little town, but in 2 different languages. And, you know, so My Kasi can also be a township or community tourism. But just to go to my home province, KZN, and you know, it's a province. Obviously, I'm very passionate about this province, but it's also a very underrated province. You know, I always say KwaZulu-Natal, where we are one of the 9 provinces, is the only province that actually has a royal family, a Zulu royal family. You know, we've got 3 World Heritage sites: St. Lucia, Drakensberg, and the Drakensberg Mountains, and of course around the beach. And you know, we push campaigns like Beach Bush, Battlefields, Battlefields, one of them, and the Berg, the Drakensberg. But you know, the KwaZulu-Natal is probably one of my favorite and probably the most underplayed when it comes to itineraries. Most people will spend probably a day or 2 in KwaZulu-Natal, but we had areas very much like, if you look at the sort of Stellenbosch franchise, where we had an area called the Midlands, not quite big wine, but it's very cultural. And Jeanneret, we talk about art, we talk about culinary tourism and that kind of stuff. It's really, really, really fantastic. So David, to answer the thing, you know, I love the whole of South Africa. You know, I think all the provinces, and I think every province has a little gem, from Limpopo to Mpumalanga to Northern Cape, Western Cape, and then KwaZulu-Natal, of course, very close to my heart as a province I live in and we operate in, and it has a lot to offer. But just interesting, and I'll just learn to Ron, we were talking about the, sort of the trends coming through, and I'll just maybe just touch back on it, David, is, one thing we've seen is this, culinary tourism has always been there, but now more than ever, culinary tourism has become quite explosive. We have guests overseas who want to come and do the fine dining, the wine pairing and that kind of stuff coming through. And I put a couple of notes. And we call township tourism, but more community tourism, lifestyle tourism. We prefer to use, the terminology lifestyle. People want to come and be, part of countries or destinations tend to also sort of create, but it's actually immerse themselves in cultures within South Africa and all different communities in that. Conservation tourism, obviously a very big thing. Andrew touched on that. People want to feel, particularly a lot of companies in their CEOs are saying, what we take out of tourism, we must put back. And that's people, community, people and communities, conservation, and lifestyle tourism, that kind of stuff. So that's a really big thing on the agenda. And then one thing I just wrote down here is it's interesting, digitalization. So what we've also found that, from a contact solution, what's really a big trend that's coming through in tourist ones is, sort of this contact solution with really from platforms, booking things quicker, faster, easier. Lead times, Ron touched on it, is that we would get lead times 6-9 months out. Now people are saying we're coming in 2-3 weeks time, particularly from our German, Scandinavian markets, which is a completely different trend. And then the biggest trend's always been the swallows. It's something that's always been the swallows have come across. So, typically when it's summer in South Africa, the guys are going to spend 2-3 months here, away from the European or Northern Hemisphere winters. Now more than ever, what we found, in particular in the last few months, a lot of Europeans come in spending 2-3 months in Cape Town or Durban and actually working. Because I think what COVID has taught us is that actually with the likes of Zoom and that, we can actually remote work anywhere around the world. We can, and we call it sort of and we've created this thing called this nomadic list, and we call it sort of roaming from home, or roaming around. And that's become a very big trend. And a lot of our customers, and these are wholesale customers, are actually, in fact, as we speak now, based themselves in Cape Town and are working. They're saying it's probably cheaper to work in Cape Town, especially with energy crisis in Germany and Europe, to actually come and live in Cape Town, work from Cape Town, than actually, stay in Europe at the moment. So that's picking up, and it's all these different trends coming through. But Dave, to answer your question, I love all parts of South Africa. Of course, KZN is a little bit special to me because I think it has so much to offer. I always feel KZN is always like that middle child. You've got, between two big brothers, you've got Kruger National Park on this side and Cape Town on this side. And it's all that middle child fight. It's not always the oldest, it's not always the youngest, but it has so much to offer. So it is, for me, it's personally, there's a lot to offer in KZN. But everywhere you go, we always used to say world in one country. In every province, in every node in South Africa has something different to offer. Stellenbosch offers some wonderful, the wines, the culture, the arts, and that. Kruger Park, of course, the safaris. KwaZulu-Natal is a completely, from a scenery point of view. West Coast, as I was there a few weeks ago, something totally different. Every little spot has something really, really special to offer. So, yeah, that's my take.
Thanks, Craig. That's really useful. And just another perspective from me before I go on to Andrew is that, another incredibly underrated product offering that we have in South Africa. And I mean, it's we're working together with our colleagues at South African Tourism to, bring this to the fore, because we think it's one of our key USPs. And it really is almost sort of reinventing the positioning of South Africa from a product perspective. There's a sort of notion that people come out here, and the traditional traveler will come to Cape Town. They'll do 4 or 5 days Cape Town. They'll do 4 or 5 days up in the Kruger, and either in the Kruger Park itself or in a private game reserve. And then they might do one shark dive, or they might do a bungee jump. Adventure tourism is our sleeping giant. We have, the weather we have is amazing. New Zealand put themselves on the map as the adventure tourism sort of capital of the world about 20 years ago, and they have 5 activities, and their winters are not pleasant. We have amazing weather. I think that's just one of the things you want to get through. You go to KZN in winter, it's 27 degrees in winter. You can swim in the sea in the middle of winter. So we've gone and done a mapping, and Rodrigo, it's something that we'd like to continue working with you and to sort of like showcase. We've identified over 101 different adventure tourism activities in South Africa. And the idea here is to sort of reposition our destination and appeal. I mean, not to negate the stuff that's happening, not to in any way turn off the taps that come for Cape Town and Kruger, but to appeal to a younger millennial market that are adrenaline junkies, that want to come for 8 days or 9 days of an adrenaline rush and then go and chill out for 2 days in a game reserve. And, you know, that's an amazing way to do it. The other thing that is that maybe the audience is not aware of is we are, and there's no definitive measure on this. So one gets a sense of this by talking to our competitor associations in other countries like New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, and some of the things. South Africa has one of the highest repeater rates in the world. So once we've got somebody here once, they realize that it's A, cheaper than they thought, the weather's better, the people are friendlier, and it's safe. It actually is safe. And the combination of those, of experiencing that firsthand means that not only do they come back, but they bring friends and family and pull people back into it again. So yeah, we are looking at new ways of doing things, and we'll be working with you, Rodrigo, to sort of try and package the whole adventure side of things and help showcase that to your audience. But Andy, you spoke a little bit about Sun City and everything else, but you've got some other properties that are also really interesting. And one of my favorite is the Wild Coast. I mean, I think that is a hidden gem, and that you know, getting down to southern KZN, northern Eastern Cape, that part of the world, that's also quite special.
Absolutely, Dave. It is one of the unsung heroes. You know, I'm a KZN. I grew up in KZN, so you know, like Craig, I moved up to. I mean, I moved up to Joburg 5 years ago, but like Craig, I grew up in Durban, and for me, being on the warm Indian Ocean and exploring the north and south coast of Durban was my childhood. So I have very happy memories from those times. The Wild Coast is 2 hours south of Durban. 2 hours drive south, and it's right on the beach. You've got a newly refurbed water park there. It's a beautiful hotel. The views from the breakfast room there, with 180 degrees coastline, you know, views. It's just absolutely exceptional. The staff are warm. It's also been through a huge refurb. There's a lot of activity at the hotel. There's obviously a casino on resort, which is not our core focus for the leisure market, but certainly you know, available to those who want to enjoy the, you know, a fun evening. But there's also a golf course there, which you know very well, and you've played many times, which is undergoing a lot of work. And it's just a fantastic place with all year-round great weather. I mean, the winters in KZN, like you know, you mentioned in Cape Town, the winters in Cape Town, in KZN, just don't exist. The mornings are warm, the days are hot, and you've got the warm Indian Ocean right there. So a lot of activities there. You mentioned you know, 101 activities, adventure activities down at the Wild Coast. There's everything from horse riding on the beach to, you know, skiing on the rivers nearby, to surfing, to 4x4 quad bikes. There's plenty to do down there, and like you mentioned, with recently now, as the 101 activities, Sun City has the same, if not more. Zip lining, you know, there's 4x4 in there, there's mountain biking, everything for every age group is catered for, so you won't be bored, put it that way.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Jeanneret, just coming on to you. I mean, you know, obviously we our time's sort of a bit limited, and you were obviously playing to your strengths and stuff. But talk to the audience a little bit about, because it's perhaps something that people don't know. And I mean, we can't get everything out today, but we can certainly through the embassy director and Rodriguez channels, you know, communicate this to people. Just talk, because you do some really interesting events and festivals, and not only you, but they happen in neighboring towns like Franschhoek as well. And I mean, just for our audience, you know, those are also lovely things to come into, where there's it's either a food festival or a literary festival or cultural in some way. I mean, those are also sort of interesting draw cards for people who are, you know, based in South Africa and just looking for weekends or long weekends away.
Absolutely, David. That was obviously identified as one of the low-hanging fruit for quick economic recovery after COVID. Getting people into the town, getting the economy going again. So of course we won't be Stellenbosch without having a wine town event, which is a whole week of wine-related festivities, and included in that is a wine festival that takes place the first week of August every year. Then we've got a very exciting garden town, Stellenbosch, which end of September, beginning of November, again 10 days of garden-related festivities. And true to our nature, every time that we have a big event, whether it's a mountain bike event or a garden event, we bring in food and wine. So within those events, we will, during the time, we will have some food and wine celebrations. You've referred earlier on to our street soiree that we do in summer months, but we also have a garden town soiree. So then we bring food and wine into the garden activities. We've got we're working on a bike town. Now, as I've mentioned before, wine is the big hook for Stellenbosch, but we believe the second biggest hook that even might become bigger than our wine hook is our mountain biking. We've got the best infrastructure in terms of mountain biking, definitely in South Africa, and we compete very well with the rest of the world. And that what is lacking at the moment is to package it, to put it all together so that somebody can sit in the States or in Germany and identify a mountain biking holiday in Stellenbosch. We're working on that. That would be happening soon. Then we've got, of course, the Woordfees, which is a literary Afrikaans literary festival together with the university. Used to always happen in March. It's now, after COVID, it changed to October. And once again, all the different sectors are playing together. Then in Franschhoek, they've got the Bastille Festival in July. They've got the Bubbly Festival, also a literary festival. So lots of, so just stay on our social media. And the one thing I wanted to say when you speak about repeat and referral, to us, that is such an important sector to speak to, because of the length of stay. So they tend to stay longer, but to use then Stellenbosch as a hub, and we call ourselves the gateway to the winelands. And then you can discover all these smaller towns in the Cape Winelands from Stellenbosch. You've got Paarl, you've got Tulbagh, you've got Ceres, you've got Robertson, all the way to Montague, which is really, and that takes you into the Plain Karoo, which is, of course, one of my favorite areas in South Africa. So yes, but festivals, keep your eye on the social media, and you will know what we have on offer, and it's all very exciting, and there's something for everyone.
Thanks so much, Jeanneret. Ron, we got to hand back to Rodrigo soon, but just like a 3-minute little synopsis. I mean, some of the stuff we haven't covered so far. To me, also one of the, I think the sort of, just sort of less trodden, but such interesting and just, I mean, the beauty is really, really amazing. And I'm going to start with you. I'm going to come back to all the panelists just for a little bit of a reflection, but talk to people about that sort of Eastern Cape from East London northwards and the Wild Coast and that part of the world, since Morgan Bay. I mean, there are beautiful parts in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, listening to everyone, you're so inspired. And I didn't hear Eastern Cape pop up too much, and I really feel like we're the land that time forgot. And I'd certainly like to chat to Craig about a tour we've been promoting to Kenton, which has started to work nicely. I love KZN too, and have done a few trips through there. That Kokstad to Underberg is wonderful. But in the Eastern Cape from Rhodes, I mean, you've got this little town, Rhodes. It was very sad to see Tiffindale closed. I don't know if anything's changed there, but the scenery changed from there down to the Addo, Kenton-on-Sea. You know, if Plettenberg Bay is a suburb of Cape Town, Kenton's probably a suburb of Plettenberg Bay, geographically split. And a new product, the Lighthouse in Cape St. Francis, is a lot of fun to stay at on those self-drives as well. And then we've explored places like there's the Witmos Oxwagon Camp. You know, these little off the beaten track where they've got the old ox wagons and you can book in. There's Klein Rivier Mountain Lodge, which is just spectacular. You literally hike 14 Ks up to the top of the mountain. So the Eastern Cape has got great diversity. And, you know, part of my goal moving forward, I really want to try and help with Eastern Cape tourism, getting us on the map. You know, a lot of travelers will do your Cape and Kruger and then look at Garden Route, Durbs, Bots, and we certainly want the Eastern Cape to feature there. And even a bigger goal would be small town South Africa. I think if we can try and get the small town and the township, just a quick example, I went up to Katberg Eco Golf Estate, couldn't believe the beauty, just right off the map, 1,500 Rand a night for 4 of us as a family. And then just down the drag was a little town called Balfour, with this old sort of deserted church, Dutch Reformed church, which is beautiful. Got speaking to locals. And how do we include those communities? Because South Africa operating as a community and travel operating as a community is what get all of the provinces in the country ahead. A lot of the provinces are bigger than small European countries. So, you know, we really need champions driving these different provinces and then working out ways for us to come together. David, I know we've got limited time, but I just wanted to mention another product as well. That because on the culinary side, Klein Jan, that offering at Swalu, whoa, if anybody's ever gets the opportunity to go and visit, that was sort of like running around in someone's imagination, funded by the Oppenheimer family. And it really was spectacular. So I also wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Thank you, man. Well, guys, we're just going to wrap up quickly. I mean, Ron, you've had your say. I mean, Jeanneret, thanks for your thing. But just let Craig and Andy just quickly, just a 1-minute reflection on, you know, the conversation and, you know, what could be possible. I suppose just from my side is to say, Rodrigo, I mean, you know, if I mean, a lot of people at embassies might want to do their own thing and put it together, and obviously, you know, people have that prerogative. But if you want some hand holding, get hold of some of our inbound tour operators. They are incredibly astute at packaging. They get good rates. They know the product, and it's a one-stop shop. So if you're doing groups or you're putting stuff together, which is obviously quite difficult to do yourself, just, you know, get hold of Satsa. Our member directories there, and you can use inbound tour operators. They're an incredibly useful booking channel. Craig, just a minute's reflection.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we've touched quite a bit. Just really from my side to say thank you very much for the opportunity to come and just share. But once again, you know, and I'm sure I'll talk on behalf of all the panelists here. I mean, South Africa is a fantastic destination, world in one country, and I think we've touched on it, and it really is. And at the moment, we can just see such a sought-after destination. We just availability is becoming a big issue, which is always a good sign that things are going quite well in that. But really, I mean, a fantastic destination. I'm not just saying as a South African, is that we, you know, the proof's in the pudding, and we can see the tourists arriving in droves. So David, and to Rodrigo, and to everybody on the thing, just thank you very much for the opportunity to spend this time with you, and hopefully see you in South Africa soon. Thank you so much. Andy, just a concluding remark from your side.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, thanks to the organizers. And since this is an Embassy Direct webinar, just to mention, Craig mentioned it in one of his comments about another trend, which is leisure. Business and leisure travel is is a real thing, and we sing a lot at our products, especially in our product near Pretoria. There's obviously a lot of embassies in the area. We have the Maslow Times Square there, which is also a large resort with 13 different restaurants. We see a lot of that kind of business and leisure trend happening there. So you may come in for business and then spend some downtime. Of course, all of our hotels and resorts have great Wi-Fi, so there's no downtime. But if you want the downtime, then you can have that digital detox and enjoy yourselves. Ron mentioned something very key about open spaces and Ubuntu. Two very important things about South Africa. You won't find another country where strangers are more than happy to talk to you and help you along your day with some suggestions about what to do. And of course, open spaces here in South Africa are aplenty, and that's what people are looking for after COVID. They want to be outdoors, they want to be doing adventure activities. So we have those aplenty. Jeanneret, your area in Stellenbosch, one of my favorite parts of the country to visit. I'm a big wine fan as well. And I won't mention a specific wine farm, but I have a few very favorite ones down in that area. And just from our side, thanks again. We're more than happy to help. Please do, reach out. Sun International has a lot of experience in hosting, business and leisure guests. We host large sports events. We're very reliant on group business, so we're happy to help with any suggestions around how you'd like to plan your stay. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Thanks to all the panelists, to Andrew, to Craig, to Ron and Jeanneret. Really appreciate your time. And Rodrigo, just to you, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think you provide such an important communication conduit through to what is really, I think, an incredibly interesting and lucrative segment. So, back to you, Rodrigo.
Thank you so much to all the panelists, to all the attendees today. Definitely this webinar has been recorded and will be replicated for the benefit of those that couldn't attend today. I would like to say that the industry of tourism is one of inclusiveness. And being inclusiveness is to bring in every single citizen across the corners of the country. In this case, in the case of South Africa, I'm talking of that woman that weaves the beads, the Ndebele woman, all the way to the chef in Stellenbosch, all the way to that Indian guy in the streets in Durban, all the way to the ranger in Kruger. And I can go on and go on and go on. South Africa has its main asset in diversity. You guys are doing an extraordinary job. The rest of your associates in this industry are doing the same. Please keep it up, because this is actually the industry that is going to save the country. Thank you so much. And for all our viewers and readers, we'll keep it up around the globe in 9 months. Good day.
Cheers, Rodrigo. Thank you.
Cheers.